a new study finds that nearly 1 in 5 Americans would not be able to afford healthcare if they needed it, which, to be honest with you at this point, that news shouldn't shock you. Now, the numbers are incredibly high. 46 million people say that if they needed access to quality healthcare today, they would not be able to cover the costs. The same percentage of adults report that amid a deadly pandemic, someone in their household has opted to skip needed care over the past year due to inability to pay. And let's also be clear that even for many private insurance holders, they're also terrified to go to the doctor because you never know what could happen to you. You never know if somehow mistakenly an out-of-network doctor sees you and you don't even know about it, and then you get slapped with a massive bill. This system is broken, and I think that this pandemic only further highlighted it. Now, people of color and low-income families are clearly hurting the most. Nearly twice as many Black Americans as white Americans said they would not be able to pay for healthcare at 29% versus 16% respectively. More than 1 in 3 low-income Americans, or 35%, said they were unable to pay for needed healthcare in the last 12 months during the COVID-19 pandemic. And this again is not really surprising. It's also not really surprising to me that even with all the pain and suffering that's taken place during the pandemic, you see no movement from either the GOP or the corporate Democrats on pushing the country closer to a single payer system. They'll continue to fight that tooth and nail because they don't represent your best interest. They don't care that the healthcare system is broken. And even Joe Biden has said on 2 different occasions that he would veto Medicare for all, even if it miraculously passed in Congress, which is an incredible thing to say. And so I want to open it up to you guys. Bernie Sanders does have a solution, partly a solution to this as we wait for a more robust option. But Alyssa, what do you think?
I guess this topic's something that I'm pretty passionate about just because I think healthcare is a human right. And I'm someone who has had to go on Medicaid or Medi-Cal if you're here in California. And the amount of relief that I got just from getting that coverage after, especially in a pandemic, and it really highlights the need, I think, for everybody, and especially people of color and low income individuals, of course, and especially in the pandemic where they say it doesn't discriminate between people, but time and time again, it's always people of color, especially Black people, and then, of course, low income individuals who are facing the hardest struggles here. So, I mean, it's true. Like what Bernie's been advocating for pretty much his entire political career, it shouldn't be a radical idea.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. And that safety net has been intentionally stigmatized, to the point where people are under the assumption that like Medicaid is awful, but it's actually not. It provides far better care than private insurance companies do. In fact, I have a friend who has not been a believer in single payer healthcare, but when she was pregnant, she realized that she didn't have healthcare, she had no option. So she went on the state's Medicaid system and she was like, I've never gotten better treatment in this country in my life, which I would hope starts to change your mind a little bit. But Woz, I know this is also an issue that you're passionate about. Bernie Sanders is he is proposing to lower the Medicare eligibility age to 55, which would be fantastic. Obviously, I would want this to go further, but he is the chair of the Senate Budget Committee, so he feels a little more emboldened than usual to pass some progressive legislation. What are your thoughts on that?
Leave it to Bernard to drag the Democrats kicking and screaming into a legislation that is extremely popular. Nobody's against this. except for the corporatists, except for, the oligarch class. Like everybody would agree, like there's no reason not to do this, no reason not to extend Medicare to people that are 55 and older, obviously, right? And like Alyssa, I myself, back when I was in New York City, when I was out of work, I was on Medicaid. I can remember having a profound toothache and being able to go to the dentist, get a root canal free of charge. It was amazing. It was amazing, like that feeling of security of knowing that, something ails you and you can get it taken care of, right? And I just want people to think about this too. Like a lot of times you'll hear people talk about things that they find they're ashamed of America for, right? And a lot of liberals will say, well, it's those hillbillies and those hicks down south, the hayseeds or whatever. They're embarrassing, they're toothless, they do their sisters and cousins or whatever, all of the stupidness. But for me, honestly, in a country that you should probably otherwise be proud of, man, we don't take care of our people. The poverty in this country it sucks. It's shameful. The fact that healthcare isn't a right, that you can get sick and just die from being broke from it. It's tough. It's a tough pill to swallow as an American when you go abroad and people are just literally like, wait, you don't get healthcare? They get healthcare in Cuba. Like, it's one of those things, man. It's clearly one of the most shameful things. And again, I think there's a growing popular sentiment toward the momentum is building towards healthcare for everybody, right? Like free healthcare, not this affordable crap that people want to bandy about. No, quality healthcare for everybody that's free. I think the momentum is moving that way, but still it sucks how it is right now.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And by the way, I need to make a quick correction. I misspoke. Bernie Sanders' proposal would lower the eligibility age from 65 to 60, not 55. But I totally agree with you guys on Medicaid, because when I was growing up, we also didn't have money for health insurance, and I had a really bad tooth issue. 2 of my teeth in the front grew out like super tiny and super sharp, and I would get bullied in school about it, and it was because of California's Healthy Families program. That's the Medicaid program in California, or at least it was at the time. I was able to go see a dentist as well. And we've moved so far away from those types of programs. I mean, they've been underfunded, defunded. And when you look at the polling, you guys are absolutely right. The vast majority of Americans want robust reform when it comes to our healthcare system. Over 80% of Americans, for instance, support setting caps on out-of-pocket costs for both prescription drugs and general healthcare services for those who are insured by Medicare. 60% of Americans support making Medicare available to everyone. And that's huge. 60% of Americans want to make it available to everyone. And it doesn't matter.
And it's important we point out who's actually against it and why. It is the capitalist class. It is the oligarch class. Why would they be against the minimum wage hike to $15? Why would they be against universal health care? Because they dangle those things as bargaining chips against us. When we're already getting that, that's one less thing they could use to coerce us into taking these horrible jobs. They can't say, well, I'm giving you health care. What do you want? Well, I'm paying you $12 an hour. What do you want? The minimum wage is 12. They are the only people against these policies. It's the capitalist class, nobody else.
I mean, that's the reason why they didn't want the relief bill to actually offer real relief during the pandemic, because they don't want to compete with just a little bit more money that Americans would get from government relief, right?
Well, you heard it all the time, Anna, when McConnell was saying, well, they're getting paid more than they do at their jobs. I'm like, well, doesn't that say something about the jobs that they have?
Exactly.
Like, what are you talking about? It's always the same story with these guys.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.